Welcome back. This is part 2 of our Velocity Network Security Summit 2024 series of interviews. Next up, we have Katrina Kita. She is from IP Services. This is a company that's behind the curtain a bit. They're in the business of brand protection. You've worked hard to build a brand and a reputation in the marketplace. This company protects that. If you've been faced with unethical competitive practices, any kind of dark web threats or product knockoffs, this is the type of company that you will want to engage. Very interesting conversation. Katrina will go into all the details. Stick around. We have Katrina Kita from IP Services. Could you give us a little bit of introduction to what IP Services does and your area of expertise?
Sure. So IP Services was founded in the late 1990s. Our founder actually was working on the West Coast as a paralegal for a pretty big name corporation. Her husband got a job here in Northwest Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So she made the move from the West Coast to Northwest Pennsylvania. And ultimately, her former employer asked if she would do some contract work for them. So that contract work grew from one person's worth to 2 to 6. For a while, they were working out of the attic in her house or her garage. And then ultimately kind of expanded to what is now about 80 people. So we offer a variety of corporate support service work to a number of Fortune 500 companies. So we offer brand protection services. We do law enforcement response, dealing with response to subpoenas or other law enforcement requests, ensuring that those are valid and meet all of the necessary criteria before any information is disclosed. We also do fraud prevention services. So we work on behalf of corporations and do manual review, large data analysis to kind of weed out fraudulent activity within their ecosystems. Mm-hmm. And then we also offer some other types of support, like administrative support. So email box management and helping put together conferences for some of our clients. So
really,
we do a little bit of everything.
Okay, so that brush gets a little more broad.
Yes.
If fraud prevention, and we're going to help set up for a conference. Yes. That's a pretty cool offering. So how long have you been with IP Services?
I've been there for 14 and a half years.
Ooh, and what's the life of the company?
Over 25.
Okay. And what number employee were you? Is that a thing?
13, or 11 or 13, somewhere in the between 10 and 15.
And you're over 80?
Yes.
I heard that number right, yeah.
So we've kind of grown and shrunk over the years, depending on client demand and, various projects that we're supporting. But one of the things that historically we really kind of prided ourselves on was that all of our growth happened due to word of mouth. So we weren't out actively pursuing leads with any entities. It was really we worked with this person at this particular company. Maybe they left, or maybe their spouse worked somewhere else and they casually mentioned, hey, these people might really be able to help you solve your problems.
That is the best form of...
Yes.
That tells me, so you're not subject to quarterly earnings and what's, it's...
Right.
Feels...
Yeah, it's very much like family.
Yes.
That really has kind of persisted. So interestingly, though, this year was kind of a turning point for us. Beginning of June this year, we actually were acquired by a new entity that's called IP House. Mm-hmm. So it's a larger organization that is really focusing kind of first and foremost on brand protection services.
Okay.
But is going to continue to maintain the fraud prevention work, the law enforcement response work, those other kind of smaller areas that we support as well. And I think that it's still really early for us to know how that's going to play
so this
out.
is a recent...
Yeah, this is just in the last couple of months. We're still doing all of the transition.
Okay.
to this larger organization as we speak. Like I missed transition meetings today to be here at this conference. So,
Yeah.
but we think that that's going to grant us access to a lot more resources, knowledge. We're going to be partnering with companies that are based in the UK and other areas that I think will really broaden.
Well, that was a question I was going to lead up to is what's your market reach? So this gives you international.
Yes. Yeah. So we did previously have international reach. So one of our main clients has a pretty big presence in the EU. And so last year, we actually established a business entity in Ireland.
Okay.
So even prior to the acquisition, we had already kind of expanded internationally.
Yeah.
But I think this takes that to a whole other level, so much more global facing entity going forward.
Well, and I hope the family feel remains.
Yes.
That's got to be in the minds of.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the new ownership has made it super clear that they don't want to do anything like that. Was one of the things that was really a selling point for them was how much we'd been able to grow, how much we'd been able to do kind of independently, a small little place in Northwest Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And, certainly there are labor challenges everywhere, but having the local universities, having all of the resources here is potentially helpful for future growth when it comes to hiring new employees.
Good point.
The cost of living certainly lower here than
the West Coast,
other places. Yeah.
Than the West Coast. Yeah. Brand protection is something that I'm interested in learning more about because company I came from, we would find when the marketing team is starting to come up with a new campaign and they'll do a sanity check scan. I'm calling it that because it wasn't a professional outsource. And it's amazing at some of the fraudulent namesake people pushing themselves as
the entity.
Yes. And then sometimes it could be in a direction that you want no part of.
Yes.
So am I thinking about it right with brand protection?
There's definitely an element of that. So we kind of offer end-to-end brand protection services. So it might be that you as the company, as the customer, have concerns about your intellectual property, and people like maybe counterfeit goods, a wide variety of things. So you might come to us and say, hey, we found these things for sale online and we think that they're counterfeit. Can you use undercover accounts, purchase them, and then determine if those are in fact counterfeit goods? So that's one scenario, that our company handles. Yeah. And then we're able to, write reports and provide documentation that can be used in legal cases against those individuals if those items are found to be illegitimate. And so one of the really cool things is that we're not just doing that for, brand name luxury goods, but we're also doing that in the pharma space, for example, which is can be life and death when you talk about people purchasing potentially counterfeit medication online, and they're ingesting who knows what, thinking that it's something else that they're prescribed to take.
In that example, who's the requester of your services?
In those situations, it's typically the brand themselves.
Okay.
So if you take, I'll use Walmart. If Walmart was worried about Sam's Club branded goods being counterfeited. I mean, I guess that's a terrible example, but you think of the main players in any of those spaces. So it would be the pharmaceutical companies or the luxury goods companies or whatever. They would contract us to make sure that the things that are available out in the marketplace are in fact the legitimate items.
Okay. Like dark web scan is something. Is that part of your? It is.
Yeah. So in addition to doing those kind of reactive types of work, we also do a lot of proactive work as well. And this is really true even if we talk about in the fraud prevention space or in some of the other areas that we support. We're out there looking to find people who are talking about how to do things maliciously, who are doing things maliciously, and kind of proactively identifying those situations and either bringing those back to our clients or doing what we can do about those things ourselves to try to address them.
So, all right, so it's not an information handoff.
Correct.
Okay, now you have to go to whatever regulatory body or...
Right. Yeah, we definitely aren't handling that side right now. However, I think with the acquisition, there is some talk about whether some additional responsibility will come in-house as well.
Because I'm trying to think of what the right market space is. Like, my immediate thought is, well, what business wouldn't want that
Right.
service? But is it expensive for someone in the small to mid-market space to engage?
No, I mean, it doesn't have to be. I think it depends on the level of service that a particular customer is looking for. So we have engagements where you get half of a person from us.
Okay.
And then we, in the past, when prior to what I'm doing now with the company, at one point in time, I was co-managing the entire fraud prevention team, which was greater than 50 people working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeesh.
So you can go from, half of a person to 50 plus, depending on what you're looking for in terms of service.
Okay. It took me 4 hours to find out, trying to how to delicately say, are you too expensive? But I think...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly isn't a cheap date, so to speak. But I think that, at least in the case of our existing customers, they're really looking at balancing, risk versus reward.
Sure.
And I think that, some of that for them is absolutely driven by like government regulation and, all of that forces them.
That's where my head goes. Yeah.
Forces them to care about it. Yes.
But so are most of your clients coming to you because something occurred? Like, how much is it proactive outreach versus reactive?
That's a great question. I would say it's probably a healthy mix. But what I really mean when I say that is most of them probably are reacting to something.
Yeah.
Whether it's a new product launch, whether it's, changes in government regulations and what they're required to do, whether it's some other thing. I think a lot of the time there is a causing action, like a forcing function that prompts them to look for support. Also, another thing that has caused some growth for us over time is budgetary challenges for corporate clients.
Yeah.
So it's more expensive for them to onboard a full-time employee and offer that full-time employee benefits. And it's cheaper to outsource to a locally based, so they don't have to feel concern regarding like, where is my data going? It's here within the US. When we're dealing with US customers, we have like pretty stringent security in place because we have to cover ourselves, but they can outsource that in some cases for much cheaper than they can doing it in-house.
Yeah.
For example. And then you kind of counterbalance that with, over the years, there have been situations where we have replaced outsourced providers who were, completely based offshore and were significantly cheaper.
But that's a nugget of information. Usually when I hear offshore, I hear, they're trying to...
Well, and in some cases, that offshore option is significantly cheaper.
Yeah.
But it's not in every case.
Yeah, sure.
Depending on the particular situation.
Yep.
So
do any of your clients or potential clients come to you with, they're getting ready to launch some new product or service, and they just want to know who's their competition?
So we haven't had a lot of situations of that in the past. It typically is after they've launched where like we might be engaged. Um,
that scenario I gave you, is that kind of like, well, that's not what we do?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But I think that that's one of the key things about us and where we came from, and maybe why we offer so many services is if we can do it, we will. Even if we're not doing it actively right now, there's a ton of work that we've done over the years that we don't do anymore. Different types of work that we don't do because things have changed. But that doesn't mean that, some other company isn't going to offer a cashback reward type program that will need support. And maybe we haven't done that in 12 years.
Yeah.
But we have the skills and the ability to do it.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. For companies that wish to engage, is this a remote engagement, or does someone show up on site?
Again,
in-depth interviews,
that kind of depends on the preference of the person or, entity that's looking to engage.
Yeah.
So obviously, since 2020, a lot more has happened remotely.
Well, what happened?
I know, wildly. But a lot has happened, and that really kind of changed that landscape. So I used to travel 1 to 2 times a year for work, if not more often. And then 2020 came, and I haven't been anywhere since then.
Oh, wow.
Because everything is happening via a Zoom meeting or a quick phone call. So we certainly have the ability to be on site to kind of work side by side, but a lot of what we're doing now is fully remote. Yeah. Just because that's kind of the way things have trended, and we haven't really shifted away from it.
Well, one of the themes for this year's conference, in fact, it's in the name, AI and Security Summit, right? So AI, so many benefits, but there's also, it's put to use for nefarious reasons. Yes. Yeah. So are you leveraging AI in your work, and has AI made your job harder or easier?
Great question. So we have not fully invested in the idea of AI as a solution that we're using. We have really tried to kind of minimize that for now. It's one of the things that's kind of on our list of stuff to figure out this year is what is our acceptable use policy with regards to AI?
Yep.
And how do we want to handle this? We're not currently leveraging it kind of across the board. And part of that is we know the nefarious ways that it's used. Yeah. Because we're dealing with it on the other side.
Yeah.
So it has been really cool in a weird way, but cool to see how it's being leveraged by bad actors. But I think that has also made us a lot more skeptical about using it for good purposes, because it's so easy to be used for the wrong things.
Right. We say artificial intelligence, but it's still based on the data.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. It's not cognitive.
You are giving up data.
Right. It's not AGI, the general cognitive capabilities. So yes, I hear what you're saying. But man, I would think this opens up a lot of doors.
Absolutely.
For what you're doing.
Yes.
And some of it's so good.
Yes.
How do I know it's fake?
Yeah. I mean, it is crazy if you look at some of the examples. And, we're dealing with that on a daily basis where we're looking at it and we're like, I don't know, and we're well-trained, very capable with a ton of experienced people. Now imagine your grandma, who doesn't have that exposure and that experience.
Well, the kidnap call.
Yes.
And that sounds like my grandson. Mm-hmm. Not my grandson, I'm not that old. He ain't lying. But the example of that.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Or the kidnap call.
Yeah.
So you try to. So is there education component to your service?
So there isn't a formalized education component to what we're doing currently. We are working on that a little bit to offer some additional education opportunities to the general public. And in the past, we have done more informal. So we have a branch of our company that does volunteer efforts.
Okay.
And that's entirely voluntary. I hate to use that word when talking about a volunteer entity, but we do a lot of stuff in the community. We'll do fundraisers. We'll go work at the Second Harvest Food Bank and stock shelves and pack boxes.
Wow.
But we've also done some events with like elderly organizations in the community. And so we're not going there to talk about how to be safe.
Yeah.
We're going there to help them with this dinner that they're hosting. But while we're there, we will casually talk about how to be safe in an online environment.
What I may have perceived your services as a luxury or a big budget. All right, we can do this.
Sure.
To like a staple.
Yeah.
Like I don't care how big your company is. The fact that you can go online in half a second and find a very professionally convincing bullshit article.
Yes.
It just feels like good due diligence.
Yes. Yeah. And we have talked a lot over the years about how we are like superheroes with capes who you don't ever see.
Yeah.
And you might not ever know, but maybe that purchase that we stopped for this client was your credit card.
Yeah.
That would have been, maxed out, or it would have had this financial impact for you. And you'll never know. But that's okay because it's the right thing to do. Like, we're not doing it because we're making money off of it. We're doing it because we feel this moral obligation to do the right thing, to learn about the technology, to use all of the things available at our disposal to do a better job for our clients, but even more so for the world that we live in. My boss always said, like, just don't be an asshole, right? Like, that's kind of our informal motto. And that carries into our business dealings as well. Like, just do the right thing because it's the right thing.
Yep.
You don't need a pat on the back.
No.
You don't need recognition. Just do the right thing. Be a decent human.
That's half of life's lessons.
Yes.
It's so hard. I mean, but it's so hard for some people.
It is. And I think it's getting harder. It's
oh, wow. Especially in today's polarized political chart. Everything's
whole other
correct.
Whole other element.
5 more episodes on this one. But one of our, at VCI Global, one of our values is we want to make the world a better place. Sounds corny initially, but
sure.
But if we are doing right for our customers and making their lives easier, they're not as stressed, which means now their team is not as stressed, which means they go home.
Yes, and they're not bringing that stress home
with their
with them.
spouse. Right.
Exactly.
And then it goes to the community.
Yes.
So when you think of it in that terms, so that's a real thing.
It is.
We believe it.
And you're right. The first thing I thought when you said that is we have something very similar in our company, motto. Like, we want to make the world be more fair, honest, and safe. And as cheesy as it sounds, that's really what we believe.
Yeah. When you talk through it, it makes sense.
Yes.
Right. Now, don't be an asshole. I love that a lot more.
It's maybe not as public.
Is that in print?
No, I don't think that's actually printed anywhere, but it is the informal motto.
But but on its face, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what brings you to this conference today?
So this is actually my second year attending. We are customers of VNet. So they provide a lot of the security services for our company. And actually, they also offer IT support. So I wear, personally, a lot of hats at work, if you will. So I'm our only on-staff IT person, but I'm not an IT person by trade. I told you I came from doing fraud prevention work.
Right.
And I started out like entry level and kind of worked my way up over the years. A couple of years ago, I moved into an IT support role, but I can't support 80 plus people across all of the hours of the day. It's not possible.
You're in the right spot. I mean,
so
there's a reason why I've been part of VNet as far as, in my previous 2 assignments, VNet was the MSP, and now in my current role, they're my go-to. Not because of relationships and all important,
yes,
but they back it up.
Yes.
Yeah.
150%.
So when you tell me that you're wearing the IT hat
Yeah.
and there's 80 folks to support.
And truly, not all of those people are here in Northwest Pennsylvania. So,
Yeah.
to go back to 2020, we started hiring more remote employees during that time.
Sure.
So we've got employees in, I don't know, more than 10 different states around the U.S.
Are there out of the home, or is there like
yes,
a regional
out
office?
of the home.
Okay.
So we provide all of those employees with workstation setups and all of that. Make sure that they have everything they need to succeed, but they're doing it from their house in North Carolina or wherever they might live. And so being able to manage that on my own, let alone the fact that, times 80 is impossible.
No.
So
absolutely not.
Not possible.
VNet has been a lifesaver for us.
Yeah.
From a security policy, best practices, and actual functional IT support. So
Correct. And not trying to make this an infomercial, but I believe it. I mean, I truly believe it. Like they get to know your employees.
Yes.
You're not numbers.
Yeah. No. I was just sitting and talking with somebody from VNet at lunch before I came to do this, and they know everybody that works at our company.
That's right.
They know what our needs are, and for us to do what we do is pretty specialized, and it takes an MSP who is capable of understanding the complexity of what we're doing for our clients, and then helping us find solutions that work for what we need to do to get our jobs done.
Well, and I love the complementary service that you bring, specialized brand protection, fraud protection. That's not in their bucket, but it kind of is with you and your team.
Yeah.
And, I was talking with another individual who also has a kind of I'll call it niche space in the security space. And there's no ego here. I mean, we all have blind spots.
Sure.
And we want to have a best possible offering for our customers.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think that if you don't acknowledge that, you're failing.
Yeah.
Or you're going to fail.
Or you're an asshole.
Yes. Or you are an asshole.
Yes.
So to be able to recognize, like, we all bring something to the table.
Yeah.
We all have something to offer, I think is again, it sounds corny, but it's the better approach for everyone.
It is the better approach. And if you truly are about customer service and not the quarter point, then these types of relationships and networking is
it's huge.
Yeah, it is. Well, thanks for taking the time. This was I learned something today.
Awesome.
So, you didn't make me stupid, so
I didn't think I would be able to. To be clear.
Right. But thanks again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And all right, well, sounds okay. All right. I'm joined today by
Katrina Kita.
Today we have Katrina Kita. Well, what business wouldn't want that service? But I don't know. It sounds okay. It took me 4 hours to find out, trying to how to delicately say, "Are you too expensive?" But I think nothing's coming to mind. So I'm winging it with you.
I'm here for it. We're just winging it on this
All right.
sunny Tuesday.
Okay.